between being a recruiter and being a sponsor. Essentially, they both seem to do the same thing, but a recruiter, somebody just brings people in and then, hey, good luck, and forgets about them. A sponsor is somebody who brings people in and guides them through what the next steps are, so they give that new consultant the best chance of success. So I'm creating a lot of the tools to systemize the process that not only that I recruit, but also the system that I use to bring people on board and to launch them and to give them the best chance of success as possible. So that's number one. Number two, I'm going to be hosting a special in-person training, which will probably also be via Zoom, sometime in January, which is going to be the Recruiter Summit. It's going to be a one-day event, all about 5 hours of training on how to be a recruiter, how to overcome objections, how to launch somebody, specifically team building, recruiting, training that particular day. Because next year, my personal emphasis is going to be team building nationwide. I've recruited probably close to 200 people since I started with Power personally. And I'm going to, by the way, that video is going to be shared here in a couple minutes. Once I'm done talking, I need to look for it and put it up. Okay, guys? So I'm going to be doing this training. It'll be done via Zoom as well. I'm probably going to rent a hotel room to do this. Okay, so it's going to be a 5-hour event, and it's going to be sometime in January. So I'm going to let you guys know when that is. So you guys, those of you guys that want to show up in person, those of you that are local, I would highly encourage that you show up in person. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to bring up somebody who is one of the top mentors in this company, who is just an absolute stud, right? They call him the expansion king, but you know, he's not only the expansion king. I mean, this guy's just closing deals left and right and just helping a lot of people. Is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to solar sales, and he's just a really smart guy, really good guy, family man as well. And I got a tremendous amount of respect for him, one of the top mentors in the whole company. Okay, every time there's a contest, this guy's on top of the leaderboard with that contest, and he knows a lot about this next subject, because a lot of us here know what's happening here with net metering 3.0 that just got approved. And here's one thing before I bring him up that I want you guys to understand. I knew that changes like this were coming. I'm not as concerned of it as some people are at all. People are going to go solar. People are still going to save money. They're just not going to save the same amount of money that they're saving right now. But here's the deal. Whenever we sell out in Florida, whenever we sell out in Texas, which I sell a lot in Florida and Texas and other states, a lot of these states, they're only saving 10, 15%, sometimes 20%. Sometimes it's just a bill swap. So the same thing is going to be here. They're not going to save 40, 50% in California, but we're still going to be able to save them, 15, 20%. And we're going to also sell more batteries, which also adds to the commissions, which also is a more complete system for these people. So as the time comes in, we're going to be adjusting, training people on how we are selling, right? But another positive thing about this is it's going to happen regardless, but you now have the opportunity to sell a year's worth of solar in the next 3 months if you really put your head down. If you really understand what's happening and you have the urgency and you talk to people about this urgency, a lot of people that were on the fence, if you educate them right on what's happening, they're going to get off the fence and they're going to want to buy solar. And then guess what? When it kicks in officially, we're going to go in there and we're going to sell accordingly. And here's one thing that I know, selling in other states, when net metering 3.0 kicks in, it's going to be even easier, in my opinion, to sell net metering 3.0 in California than it is to sell systems in other states. And I've sold in other states, right? North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Texas. At the end of the day, they're paying, for example, I think in Texas, they're probably paying, correct me if I'm wrong, Texas people, 16, 17 cents a kilowatt hour. Vegas is paying about 14 cents a kilowatt hour. We're paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour here. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start also selling batteries with our sales here in California, which if we sell the Solar Edge battery, I believe that's somewhere about a $2,400, $2,600 commission. So I think it's good. I think it's also going to weed out some of the competition, some of these smaller companies, which is, by the way, something that Jordan Shaw shared with me. So anyways, with that being said, let me go ahead and introduce Mr. Jordan Shaw. Are you there, brother?
Hey, man. How you doing, JC?
Incredible, bro. Good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good. So as JC was saying, really, like, this is it. We knew something was going to change. We knew everybody said NEM 2.0 was going to happen, and suddenly we had it, right? And that's what we're sitting on now. We have basically a mad opportunity in front of us to get a lot of business in a very short amount of time. So like if you were like thinking about your New Year's resolutions and what you're going to do for your business, right now we've been kind of given sort of a gift of a rush when it comes to this new policy. It's a lot of companies are going to basically saying, hey, solar is going to be, getting killed in California and all this other stuff. It's like, really, that couldn't be further from the truth. Is the utilities just didn't give us a lot of time to adapt to basically a new billing cycle and new billing policy basically for this net energy metering. There's a post going around for like Maui, like the Maui solar guy. He posted something in one of those solar groups talking about how in 2016 Hawaii did something similar, and yeah, it hurt a lot of different companies, but those that were strong and knew how to sell value were the ones that survived. And really, that's what we have to do, is literally do exactly that. We're still going to show a solar savings of some sort across the term, right? If you're in those other markets, like I started out in Maryland where we were 10, 11, 12, 13 cents at the most 8 or 9 years ago. When I was helping my own community go solar, I was only talking 10 or 20 bucks difference in those markets at that time when solar was so much more expensive. Now we have the value of selling, honestly, batteries that are going to be helping our clients in terms of creating a bubble. It's all about how you frame it in the sale, right? Say, hey, do you want resiliency? Do you want do you want to be able to make sure that you're just completely protected from the rising utility rates? Now, when they say, well, I don't really want a battery, that's how the conversation gets shifted. So, well, you know what, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, I need to tell you that, just the way in which the export of the grid is, the companies now, the utility companies want to give you, for every $100 that you're sending out to the grid, they want to give you 25 bucks back. Does that sound fair? And they're like, no, of course. Well, this is how we protect you. We need to bank your energy storage. So it's going to be post-April is really going to be all about how you frame the solar savings, how you frame like the value add of these batteries. But in the next 90 days, plus it's technically 120 days, but in my mind, I almost have and I need to wait until what Power says on this as well. I'm thinking March 15th, because we can't guarantee interconnection. Paperwork's going to be filed by April 15th. I'm almost thinking 90 days. I'm not thinking 120 days, because I don't want to play with fire with my clients if they get moved over to 3.0, right? But at the same time, I mean, there's the opportunity for a mad dash here to add complete value to your clients in this next 90 days, telling them to get off the fence, dripping on the clients that ghosted, that did, said no, not right now, and think that they have the opportunity to go solar at any given time. You want to say, hey, to protect your maximum value, the utilities want to cut your utility export by 75%. They want to elongate your solar savings payback. I want to protect you from that. And the people that move off the fence are the smart ones. The people that don't move at all, obviously, it's an IQ test, right? So you're like, I can't help you. Goodbye. It's like, I'm going to move over to another client that is going to value this, what I'm giving them. And so this sense of urgency, you now have legitimate urgency within the news. Before, it's like, hey, we've got the solar special, we've got a free year, we've got whatever, and you're like, yeah, that's good. But now you have something that they can Google and that they can actually bring up, and you can show them and saying, this is the utility taking this power away from you. Would you like to get in and save as much money as possible ahead of this? And I was telling JC, I'm like, I think we're going to have almost a year's worth of sales potentially in the next 90 days if we actually set our mind to it. We're going to crush things. The trick with that is, obviously, just like coming off the summer, just set expectations for your customers, saying, hey, as long as we're interconnected, we have up to 3 years to get this thing into play. And what you can say to them is like, why do you think they gave it 3 years? I'm like, I don't know. Well, because every single municipality, every single company, like every single install crew is going to be completely slammed to get your install. So don't worry about it. It might take a little bit longer to get panels on your roof, but what matters is us getting that disconnect and making sure that you're in the system by the 15th. And the earlier we do that, the higher of a guarantee I can give you, because everybody else is going to be trying to do the same thing. So creating that urgency to be able to make sure that they're getting in, because they're like, oh, well, I have until April. No, you don't. No. Don't tell me they have until April. I said, you have this week. That is the type of urgency that you need to make sure that your clients have. Get them in, get their solar savings in. Post April, everything's going to shift, right? And I think we're going to get some more direction on the leadership on exactly how they're getting batteries, but we're going to want to set expectations for our customers that battery supply and say, hey, this might take a little bit longer. You know, we're used to very quick turnarounds in terms of our installation times. We all remember what COVID did to the battery supply. Now imagine everybody trying to gobble up batteries at this point, and we're going to see an elongated sales cycle on these batteries. So the more that you got in the pipeline right now for prior to this cutoff, that's going to carry you. Let me tell you again, that's going to carry you when you're doing sales with batteries, and they might take, you know, 2 or 3 times longer to actually install, because that's potentially a reality. Now, I believe Power is going to just whip out the checkbook and be able to make sure we get some batteries, right? But we're in a unique position as a company where these smaller companies, I'm starting to put that doubt in with my clients, say, hey, if you're looking at some other companies, they might not be around next year. And let me tell you why. They have an elongated sales cycle, right? I said, these people won't be able to have the cash in the bank to basically, they get paid on the back end. Like, you're going to be safe with me. Your warranty is going to be safe. Your cash deposits are going to be safe. Those are the types of things that I'm starting to say. And I'm saying to my existing clients that are getting installed now, don't worry, we've got your back. Powered $300 million this year. They got $50 million in the bank. They're going to be around. They're built to weather this storm. And so, and because I'm already getting those calls, hey, does this affect me? Does this affect me? Right? You know, just making sure my clients know that we're safe. But those are kind of like some of my bullet points right now is, yeah, where it's going to be a ride now. And something I want to say is don't try not to make sure that solar is in a negative light, right? You want to create urgency. It's not like California killed the solar market. Not at all. It's the fact that they're driving a different, there's a shift to storage, and we knew this was coming. It's coming a little faster than we knew, right? And that's the way in which kind of a good way to actually frame it with your clients. So you'll lose clients saying, no, you know what, this seems like it's always like all over the place. I don't know if I want to play part of that. I've lost clients when they were floating the solar tax a year ago. But that's something you can bring up, and you can say, hey, we vied to get rid of a solar tax. There is no more solar tax. It's just a devalue on the energy. We want to get you, you're safe for 20 years, right? So, but you will have people that walk away, but that's okay. You're going to be so busy with the clients that are going to be going with you that you're not going to care, right? You're going to move with the people that you need to move. You've got to treat it like the summer. Like, the ones that are going to move with you are going to move very, very quickly. And the ones that are just going to fall behind will fall behind, and eventually probably come back and you say, all right, great. Well, we got to look at $26,000 in batteries now. You know, like, oh, I don't know if I want batteries. Well, you should have done it. Should have, wish I could have, you know, whatever. So, but that's kind of like my 2 cents on this right now is it's urgency. Does anybody not know really what on 3.0, what it's doing, right? Do you guys need me to go over specifically kind of what is happening here with 3.0?
Please.
If you could go through it a little bit, that'd be great, brother.
Okay, cool. So basically, as I mentioned, April 15th is the cutoff. The paperwork needs to be filed for all solar interconnections to basically filed with the utility. Now, this is on the big 3. So does that mean you need to ignore like public utilities, like Riverside Public Utility and stuff like that? No, you need to create urgency with those customers too, because what the big 3 do, the smaller utilities will probably follow suit on at some point. And so we've already seen that with IAD, Anaheim, public utilities, those types of utilities. But basically best way to frame this with a client is saying, okay, for every kilowatt hour that is hitting the grid, they're going to reduce the value of that by 75% after April 15th. If you're not interconnected, or you're not grandfathered into 2.0. And so I always say, well, if that's like me saying, if I borrow $100 from you and I pay you back with $25, I say we're even, does that feel even to you? And no, it's not. And that's exactly basically what they're doing. Now there's a whole advanced export rate type of calculation that's complete. Honestly, it's kind of a complete mess. It's very hard to actually follow, but the primary purpose of 3.0 is to put energy storage on the grid. And those that actually have energy storage, that have batteries, will actually be able to, this is post April 15th, right? Saying like this will be one of the selling points that we'll need to do is, oh, you can export your energy to the grid at a certain period of time in a certain month. That you don't want to, it's going to get kind of weird on the conversation, but you basically can get paid to export your excess energy. That'll be basically one of those selling points. Like when you're banking your energy and the utility wants you to export that out of your battery pack, you're going to get rewarded by that. And that's an optional thing. You could just choose to stay in a bubble if you want to. So 3.0 basically is just a shift on the export value of every single kilowatt hour that's hitting the grid. This means, I'm going to tell you this, that all those south facing arrays, those west facing arrays, like ones where you're like, oh, this is the primary for the sun, that no longer matters. You actually need to basically figure out what your usage is with your client, especially when the sun goes down. Try to actually get smart with that and basically size your array based on the amount of kilowatt hours they need to consume at night as well. And so you're going to be putting solar across the roof line in some different areas. So let's say you do have a roof that's optimal. It's like, all right, well, if it's optimal, okay, well, there's nothing much you can do. You're going to catch it from sun up to sun down. Just know that array may actually need to be sized slightly differently. You're actually collapsing the size of the solar array so that you're banking as much energy as possible. Again, like JC said, it's not like you're losing money in this situation because now you're gaining all that additional margin in the batteries. So even if the array no longer is 120% and it actually is back down to 100% or maybe 90%, you know, somewhere in that ballpark, you're putting extra batteries in, right? And so there's probably going to be a lot of advanced training on how to do this. Like we're all going to be kind of learning also on our feet on this and trying to understand it the best we can. But the goal will be basically just designing an array that actually kind of follows the sun, but follows the sun at specific times. So if your homeowners come home at 4 o'clock, yeah, you might have a little bit more panels on the western face to make sure those batteries are topped off by the time that they're actually setting foot in the door, you know, things like that. Those are the types of considerations that you're going to have to make. So it does, from what I read with NEM 3.0, we can still size up to 150% to allow for electric cars. So don't be afraid of that. If the customer is going to be getting an EV, we're just going to have to tell them, hey, Mr. Customer, you're going to want to probably charge your electric car during the day, which kind of might not really work well because everybody's gone, you know, but we're going to have to figure that one out as well. But you know what, EVs, we might be plugging EVs into the houses soon and using those as those battery packs. We don't know, those bi-directional. I feel that's going to be coming at some point. There's going to be a bigger push for that for sure. But yeah, that's kind of some bullet points on 3.0. Did I clarify that at all? Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Is there any, let's take some questions. Let's bring some people up with some questions. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to come by and ask a question.
Hey, JC, I have a question for Mr. Shaw. When is the absolutely latest that we have to get our paperwork in so that we won't so our clients won't get caught in this 3.0?
So the paperwork has to be filed basically on the eve of the 14th, essentially is what it is. So as soon as you start hitting that 30-day mark before April 15th, I anticipate we should all start thinking seriously, depending on what utility it is. What is the likelihood of this getting filed? I think power is going to probably be, it's been talked in a lot of the other meetings about making sure that our customers are pushed to the front of the line. Like the first thing that we're doing is file the interconnection paperwork. Like that's like the first thing before we ever get to designs, before we get to stuff, file the paperwork, then get to the design. I mean, they're going to be going in tandem, but you know what I'm saying. So as soon as we get to that 30-day mark out, that's where you have to start. All right, you have to start setting that expectation, saying we're going to file with the utility as quickly as possible, but the utility will have to process this. So I'm sure there's going to be something where we're going to need to either talk about it, or it's going to need to be in the power contract of being like, hey, if this is dependent on NEM 3.0, like if we miss this cutoff, we need to have a conversation about putting batteries in. Now, I don't think those are the types of things. It's all about going to be all about setting expectations. So you don't have angry customers coming back saying, we missed the cutoff date. What happened? Now you want me to spend, money on batteries that you said I didn't need, right? You want to, as soon as you get to that 30-day mark, the conversation starts to need to shift. Like, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to get you in as quickly as possible. But just in case, I want to prepare you, because you and everybody else is trying to get in with the utility. But the answer is basically right before the 15th, but I wouldn't take that as the real date. if you know what I mean.
Okay, absolutely. And also you mentioned the big three. Who are the big three?
Well, the PG&E, SCE, and SDG&E, the CPUC specifically, this actually impacts. But the local utilities, like the public utilities that are like Riverside and others, they will probably no doubt follow suit on this, and we'll start to see the shift in those utilities as well. And those utilities were hard enough to sell in a lot of times because their utility rates were a lot lower. But you know, that's going to be what it is in those. So that's why I'm saying use this push on at the bigger scale, because really the media is saying California as a whole, right? So as far as your clients are concerned, no matter which utility they're in, I mean, I'm not saying lie to them, but I'm just saying, like, create the sense of urgency, saying if you think that you can just do this anytime, look what just happened. Yeah, it's like we need to do this now. But those are the big three are the ones that actually are listed. So if you look at the CPUC or the California Public Utility Commission's 260-page, which if you haven't brought it up, at least bring it up and start scrolling it. There's graphs. They talk about each of the utilities, their buybacks, the adders. California's or CalSA has been doing good analysis on this. If you haven't seen any of the CalSA videos that are out there now about trying to decipher what was coming versus what's here, I'm sure CalSA is going to have additional webinars to make sure everybody's up to speed on it. But yeah, the big three are SCE, PG&E, and SDG&E.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Jordan.
Another
Good
question
morning.
somebody had
Great.
is they had a question of, will an MPU delay the project from filing?
That shouldn't be the case because that's a design thing, but no, I don't think it delays that. It delays the overall project because we got to wait on them to come out, right? But the filing and getting that ahead, those are two different tracks, I believe. But I don't think so. But
Okay,
we'll double check. I don't believe so.
Another question is, when does a filing happen? Right, where is that period? The site survey, design, permit install.
Right now, there's no way to visually see it. I've seen them kind of every now and again. I get a client that says, I got this paperwork from SCE, like they forward me the email. And so it kind of varies based on the project. So this is why I think Power is going to be looking at trying to make sure that happens at the very, very beginning of after the contract signed, within like the first week they're filing, because they're going to need.
That's what I heard too.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So right now, I wish I could actually tell you exactly when it happens. I just know it happens usually within the first 30 days, within usually the first couple of weeks. Every now and again, I get a customer that sends me that email, but that goes to the client and that goes to Power. We're never CC'd on that. The only time I ever see it is when a client decides they want to bring it to my attention. All the PTO emails or not the PTO emails, but the submitted emails for all that. So.
Yep. So can you, one of the questions is this, can you explain how, especially when net metering 3.0 kicks in? I mean, and by the way, it does apply right now too, but especially when net metering 3.0 kicks in, let's say it's an 8 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt system, how it benefits them to have a battery, right? Especially when we're talking about net metering 3.0, why would having a battery be an extra benefit?
To the client, or to saying like for you to actually sell it to the client?
No, to the client,
Gotcha. So for the client, I would say, hey, like Mr. Client, like, right now we've got blackouts, we've got, a different degree of just energy fluctuations within the state. So having this battery is actually going to put you in a protective bubble for your home and your family. So now in case the grid ever goes down, you're going to be able to actually be self-sufficient for anything that is sitting on this backup panel, right? And we're going to see a lot more of them want to do kind of whole home backups, I'm sure, at the same time. But I will say, like, hey, this is a protective bubble for your family. This is resiliency. You sell it as resiliency with the added benefit of obviously that they're going to be saving money. You're going to be banking this. So instead of sending it out to the grid where they're not going to give you much for it, you're now banking it. And now you get the double benefit of both the savings as well as a peace of mind. So now your home stays up in the event of a grid outage. That's, I believe, pulling on the strings for protecting the family, right? The house, right? Making sure that they're resilient in case California decides. You can ignore those flex alerts, right? You can tell them that, right? Stuff like that, like flex alerts, you can ignore that, or you can choose to sell it during a flex alert. So those are the types of things that I plan on saying when I talk about, whenever time I've talked about battery, it's always been a resiliency conversation. It's never been really a savings conversation. And that's something that's going to shift, is it's going to be savings and resiliency now.
Yeah,
But
Jordan.
what about as far as the net metering 3.0 kicks in, right? Being able to store their own electricity and not being able to, not having to send that to the grid.
Yeah, I said, well, instead of you sending out $100 worth of energy and only getting $25 back, now you're going to go ahead and pocket that, throw it. Basically, I may start calling the battery like a savings, savings account. You're moving that into your own savings, which is right there in the battery, right? In your own, you're keeping it in the bank, right? You're keeping it with the battery bank. So I might start, as a financial institution, I might start using that as a term, because it'll be real in both directions. But that's how I plan on kind of selling it to them.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because instead of sending it to the grid, just to retouch on what Jordan said, instead of sending it to the grid and then getting back 25% of what you sent to the grid, which is one of the big things with net metering 3.0, is that you are storing it on site, right? With your backup battery. So when you need that electricity at night, when the sun is not shining, guess what? You're drawing not from the grid, but from your backup battery. So, and one of you guys, I think it was Fabian, that asked earlier, if you only make money or a commission when you sell Solar Edge. No, you make a commission when you sell Solar Edge or Enphase, but you make actually a bigger commission when you sell Solar Edge. I think it's like a $900 difference, right? But did you want to add to that, Jordan?
Yeah, so Solar Edge, right now it's going to be, when you sell a client, it's going to be not necessarily preference on that. It's going to be about what the client actually needs. So if they come into the conversation saying, I want micro inverters, obviously there's one way direction to go. If they go, I don't know anything, right? You're going to be looking at you as the professional to identify specifically what their needs are. And so, yeah, there is a little bit of a margin difference between Solar Edge and Enphase. At the end of the day, it could get washed. You could get a panel that gets added, right? And one of these projects that just eliminates it. It doesn't matter. But what it is you're going to have to know what your clients actually need. So to me, I'm actually partial on the Solar Edge batteries, because one, they look like the Tesla Powerwalls. The clients look at that and they go, oh, it's a nice clean white look to them. And they're a better architecture in terms of from a perspective of every single time you have to convert energy, you lose some of it. And the fact that it directly charges off the solar array is an added benefit. Obvious drawback, there's a central point of failure associated with one of those, but there's central points of failures with the Powerwall too. So, I mean, every single, it's going to be all about specifically what the client needs. If they're looking at trying to back up more loads, like the Solar Edge is going to be a better fit, because you can get 5,000 watts per Solar Edge output, and the battery and I think the inverter does like a 7.6 kW. So it's all going to be, when it comes to sizing, the sizing might actually be better on Solar Edge. But if you're like, I want to make sure my client's completely resilient Enphase was going to be a good fit too. I think we need to get good at potentially selling both, and it's really going to be driven by what our customer load requirements are. The smaller their house, the more an Enphase solution might actually make a little more sense. The larger the house and the more workloads that they actually have, potentially a Solar Edge will actually make more sense. So something to think about. Don't think of it specifically around commission. Think about specifically what your client needs, because at the end of the day, they're going to refer you again, right? And you're going to make that commission as well. But I believe you're right, GC. I think there's a little bit of an actual commission edge on the Solar Edge side. I know they're up in their game.
Yep. And not only that, yes, what Jordan mentioned is, and this is, any tier 2s and tier 3 should already know this, right? If you are doing Enphase inverters and you want to do a battery backup, it could only be Enphase battery. Same thing with Solar Edge, right? You have to use Solar Edge inverter. I'm a little bit partial to Solar Edge. Since I started, I've sold Solar Edge. I sell both of them, but I lean more towards Solar Edge, and I've sold batteries as well. And it is a more complete system. Somebody here in the comments just mentioned that in the Carolinas, a guy shot with a rifle at the transformers and they went without power for 3 or 4 days. And one of the things about selling just in general is story sell. Facts tell, story sell. For example, when I sell batteries, I often mention what happened out in Texas. With that freeze over that happened in Texas, the only people that were doing all right during that time were people that have solar panels with a backup battery. So it isn't just about hey, locking in your rates and protecting yourself against the future. It's also in an unfortunate event like that. There's even a documentary. I'm gonna share it in the groups on how vulnerable the grid in America is. It is extremely vulnerable. It's been attacked multiple times, and they keep saying that they believe it's going to get attacked again. Guess what? Everybody on here and every single one of your customers is going to wish that they had 1 or 2 batteries in a situation like that. So, and again, we're going to do trainings on this, right? As the market adapts and the market changes, we need to adapt and change ourselves. So there's going to be specific trainings on selling with Net Metering 3.0, specific trainings on, guess what? We're all going to go to another level when it comes to backup batteries, right? Because that's what it's going to require. Now, some of you guys are in different states. It's a little bit different, but California. But I think everybody should be educated on these things.
Now, something to bring up is because I do have people, pinging me for expansions all the time, obviously, and I'm starting to get more and more of you actually hit me up for expansions. Expansions are going to be trickier now, because if you go ahead and you do an expansion, it actually will take the entire system over to 3.0. So anybody that needs an expansion, you may want to go ahead and encourage them to get it now. I just sent this out to leadership as well. SunPower was in my inbox. My existing system on my new construction house was a SunPower. I got an N-phase system behind me, but they went ahead and they blasted all their clients. SunPower has already done so, talking about, hey, you're safe, right, from these changes, but hey, just heads up, if you want to add additional panels, you need to do it now. And the reason for that is because it will move to a 3.0. Now, if the client comes back and they're like, well, I've just added a pool, I've added all this, and it's a 30 to 40 panel expansion, right? Like it's going to be massive, or 20 plus panels, right? It's not a small expansion. There's still going to be ways to do that, but you're going to have to weigh the just because they say they want one doesn't mean that they should necessarily do it. And if they do it, we have to put batteries on the back end, which, to the point of SolarEdge working with SolarEdge and Enphase working with Enphase, there's only really 1 or 2 options out there in the market that allows you to combine 2 systems. And it's one of the reasons why I've got 2 power walls sitting in my garage, is because I had 2 unlike systems that have to get put together. So I've already raised that concern myself with the team corporate, saying, hey, are we going to be getting solutions like batteries like power walls for expansion systems, right? We're going to need to have options for our clients. I hate to walk away from a client that wants an expansion, but I'm not going to. Basically, the reason for this is you can't set a client up on a one-legged system. It does disservice to them. If they have an existing 8, 12 panels, whatever it is, and you go ahead and you put an expansion in with batteries on the back end just for the expansion, you've just completely devalued their old system. And that's not right. Right? That's unethical. You're not going to want to do that or be able to do that. So something to keep in mind as we march forward as well is expansion landscape for these existing new construction homes are going to shift as well. And so talking about supply chain, because I saw that in there, that's something you're going to want to be able to say to your clients, is saying, hey, like, you're going to want to set that expectation, saying, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to have a little bit of a longer lead time on these, right? Because that's going to play into what we're getting, will play into what we actually have as well. So I trust Power is going to be able to get the inventory that we actually need and buy it out. Something to keep to hit on though too, and JC alluded to this, is some of the competition are going to clean house. This is going to separate, and this is going to make the stronger. And so your local companies that maybe you've been bidding against, and they can go, it seems like, to the rock bottom because they only need to make the installation costs for their company. Those companies may not be around, right? And I mentioned this,
Yep.
like, they might not have the cash flow to survive or be able to get those batteries for their clients. So I think we're gonna see a shift there. We're gonna see a little bit of cleanup, because everybody knows the California market is very competitive on the number of solar companies that are out here. It seems like you go a mile and you've got 2 companies sometimes. But that's something that's gonna be opportunity, because you're gonna have less competition potentially on this, and you're gonna be able to sell the value, get you good at selling the value of Power as a company. I mean, that's it. I mean, they've got the financial backing. Do you want somebody that's anchored in California, or do you want somebody that has over 20 different states, including, now Puerto Rico, and just continue to expand and understand the market, has the financial stability handling your system, right? I mentioned that with the warranties. You sell that, you're like, suddenly they're like, I want to talk to you, and I only want to do business with you because I don't know if this local company is going to be around in 5 years or even next year. So anyway.
I think that's a great point that you just brought up, right? Not only can anybody on here can go out there and do, as we mentioned a few times, Jordan mentioned it, I've mentioned it, 1 year's worth of business in 90 days. But guess what? Just like when the rates went up, there were some people that were like, oh my God, up in arms because the rates were going up and dealer fees were going up. Rates and dealer fees have gone up a lot, man. Guess what? We're still closing business every single day. People are still going to go solar. As a matter of fact, right now, briefly, I'd like to bring up Ramsey Clark, because Ramsey is a mentor on the team and he actually sells solar out in Florida. He sells solar nationwide, but especially in Florida. And Ramsey, I want you to bring up to people, because I think a lot of people that are in California seem to think that it's been the same in other states, people saving 40, 50% on their electric bills. I want you to share with them what your experience is selling solar. And you sell a lot of solar out there. You're new to the industry. You're only 1 year in the industry. Tell us about your experience and how you got to mentor and how selling solar in Florida is different than California.
Sure. Thanks, JC. So over here in Florida, we're looking at about 14 to 16 cents per kilowatt. So really, there's not much savings over here. It's more of a bill swap, but it's all about the conversation. You have to explain to the homeowner that solar is a long-term play. They have to pay this money regardless, whether they go solar or not. They're going to pay for it. So does it make more sense to put that money into your pocket and to your family's pocket? Or does it make more sense to throw away that money and burn it, giving it away to the electric companies? And it's basically, that's what it comes down to. So yes, they're cutting down rates in California, but it's not the end of the world. If anything, look at it as a new challenge, as a way to overcome, to grow, to become a better solar consultant, influencer, and persuader, so that you can make people understand that this is the right choice for them and the world. That's my 2 cents.
I love it. I remember when I sold my first deal as a new mentor in 2020 in Florida, and I looked at it was my first one, and I looked at the proposal and I said, wait a minute, something wrong with this proposal. They're not saving anything. And it was at 7 a.m. California time, because it was 10 a.m. over there. And I presented and I closed the deal. The bottom line is regardless of these changes, people are going to go solar. They're not going to save 40, 50%. They're going to save 10, 15%. And here's another thing. I'm going to be very direct with you. There's going to be, for example, right now, we could take a person that's paying $90, $100 a month and still save them some money. That's not going to be the case with Net Metering 3.0. That's not to say that we can't sell them. We will be able to sell them, but it's going to be like, you're not going to save anything. Normally, your customer, your neighbor that was paying $200 a month, yes, we save them 15, 20%. We're going to only do a bill swap for you, but we're going to lock in that rate. Here's how much rates have gone up in the last 15, 20 years. Well, if this keeps happening, here's how much you're going to save over the next 25 years. So it's going to be a matter of selling solar here in California the way people are already selling solar in Florida, the way people are already selling solar in Texas. And let me tell you something. There's people in Florida and Texas, not only in our company, but in other companies, making $250,000, $500,000, $1 million a year just selling solar out there. So to me, it's like, hey, listen, we're going to build stronger people. We're going to build better sales professionals, more persuasive. The training is going to adjust to this. But I still think that selling solar is going to be easier in California than it is in Texas and in Florida. In my experience, I've sold everywhere. This year, I'm over 100 sales. Last year, I did 116 sales. Trust me, I've sold everywhere from New Jersey, California to New Jersey, and everywhere in between. So we just want to keep those things in mind. And also, a big one that Jordan just mentioned, which he brought up a great point. Some of these companies, small mom and pop companies, they're going to be out of business. Right now, more than ever before, it's a time to talk on social media. It's a time to make the phone calls. It's time to go out there and prospect and let people know and have that sense of urgency that you have no idea how good Net Metering 2.0 is right now. You want to make sure you take advantage and get grandfathered into Net Metering 2.0 and do a year's worth of business in the next 90 days. And then leading up to the 90 days, guess what? Adjust to the way that you need to adjust, the way that we're all going to adjust. And lastly, Power is a platform that allows you to build and sell nationwide. I'm going to keep recruiting like crazy in California, but I'm going to keep recruiting like crazy in Texas, Florida, New Jersey, North and South Carolina, and everywhere that we're at now, Puerto Rico, soon Hawaii, right? And in Hawaii, by the way, last thing that I'll mention before I pass it on to these gentlemen is this, what happened here, something similar like that happened in Hawaii years ago, okay? They adjusted. Now it's like every system that they sell has a backup battery. It's just the norm. That is what people are going to get used to. And I'm excited because when I'm going to sell a 10 kilowatt system with a backup battery, instead of making an average of $7,000, my average will probably be $9,000 or $10,000. So I don't have to sell as many systems in order to make those bigger commissions. So to me, you know, at the end of the day, here's the deal. The government is pushing renewable energy. We're not going backwards. We're going forward. The world is going to go renewable energy. The question is whether they're going to go solar with you or whether they're going to go solar with me or a different company. And another thing is a lot of these small companies, I think I just mentioned it, they're going to fold because they don't have the deep pockets that Power has. I guarantee you the way Jonathan Budd is, he's going to go out there and see the opportunity and see, you know, buy as many of these batteries as he can. You know why? Because he can. All of these other companies, they cannot. We are the fastest growing solar company in the world. You imagine how much money Power makes just off of the membership fees before any sales are made? They use that money accordingly. And so that's why, that's another thing that makes me feel very proud and secure to be working with a company like Power. Let's take some more questions. And Ramsey or Jordan,
JC,
is there anything else that
if
you'd
I
like
may
to add?
just,
Yeah,
I just wanted
please
to
go
add
for it.
real quick, and I know that Wayne has had his hand up forever, and Wayne is like 5 a.m. So kudos to you for always being on here. And you're the real
Thank you.
MVP, dude. I just wanted to let everyone know that the deal I just sold was actually $30 more than what they were paying monthly. So it's all about the conversation and just making them see the big picture. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, thanks, Ramsey. Well, that's actually relates to my first questions. I haven't sold one yet, just a timing issue, but I just wanted to find out the typical, say, 10 kilowatt an hour deal together with a battery, say over a 25-year period. Would you still have a monthly, say, finance bill similar to the current power bill over that period? I know that JC said that there wouldn't be any savings really anymore. It would simply be a bill swap and selling energy security rather than energy or than money savings. Is that roughly what you could expect now with NEM 3?
Well, it's not going to be just about NEM 3. It's going to be more the interest rate that they're getting and the type of financing you're getting, how many batteries, and the orientation and where you're selling it. That's going to be, I mean, I may encourage customers to start thinking about a 15-year, you know, just because interest rates where they're at right now, say, hey, why, instead of locking you in for a long term, let me go ahead and show you what the 25-year savings is if we did something on a 15, you're going to own it faster, and you start selling that additional value and security. So the conversation is going to be different. I think we're still going to see some savings on a monthly potentially, but it may not be year one. It really depends. But if energy rates continue spiking the way they spike, eventually we're gonna be back right where we started. Now we're just selling additional value with solar and the batteries, right? Than that. So what I would encourage is if you've got like a proposal sitting out there with that of somebody that, you know, didn't move forward or like you just want to just kind of mess around with a proposal, start messing around with like system sizes and stuff and adding batteries in and seeing where your margin needs to be, seeing where the interest rates are right now. Right. And saying exactly, all right, my conversation is going to have to shift a little bit if I'm doing this. Like that'd be something that's good. Like just kind of play around with it, you know, just to get an idea first. And then obviously every single house is going to be separate, right? It's going to be a different story. But you know, it's going to be more, I think, around the interest rates. This pairing it with the interest rates increasing, you know, it's not as good. You might want to encourage them to start taking lower loans because just like we said, 25-year 1.99, right? Now we're talking 15-year 8%. different conversation. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing I want to say. Because here in Australia, NEM 3 pretty much has been in operation for years and years already. And when people sell solar here, they pretty much focus on doing an energy audit to see what people's self-consumption is, because they're focusing on getting people to move all their electricity usage during the day when the solar panels actually produce energy to replace their existing rates. So I think a good marketing foot in the door or an angle would be for guys, especially the door knockers, to go and say, look, we're offering a free self-consumption energy audit because NEM 3 is coming in, and if you don't actually lock in now, you're going to have to be able to justify your solar based on how much consumption you personally use every day. So it's just a really good angle to employ, I'd say. Well, that's just what I was thinking anyway. But thanks for that. Thanks, Jordan.
Awesome. Jordan, thank you so much, brother, for coming on. I was about to say the podcast. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on the training. This training is recorded. It will be available. Okay, it's going to be available on the YouTube channel here in a couple of hours. So make sure you guys, any team members that couldn't make this training, you want to make sure that they get on the training. I'm here at the office, and as you guys can see, I've got people showing up for our 11 a.m. Meeting. So we got to get off, but I'll see you guys today at 5 o'clock. And remember, tomorrow, 10 a.m. with Jonathan Brunasso, Zoom with JB. You want to make sure you get on there. They're going to talk more than likely about net metering 3.0 as well. So I'll see you guys at the top or from the top. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Ramsey. Thank you all.
Thank you, JC.
Thank you.